Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became godlike and built his own harem, Anko yugao fem kyuubi, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. In the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen sat with a scowl on his face looking at the sleeping form of a 12-year-old Naruto Uzumaki. The young boy had been beaten unconscious by villagers earlier that night, and had been rescued by a passing academy student, Anko Mitarashi, who had seen the end of it happen and had broken the fight up capturing the attackers with the help of her summons, all of who are now awaiting interrogation by Ibiki, head of the T&I division, torture and intelligence. Due to the boy's circumstances, Naruto's injuries had to be treated in his office. 15% of the hospital staff were volunteering citizens doing the smaller tasks around the building, but not one of them would have passed up the opportunity to try to make Naruto's short stay even shorter by trying to end his life. This had happened several times in the past and Hiruzen had given up sending him there and had one of his Anbu with the most medical experience treat him instead. The young Anko stood beside the elderly Hokage looking down at the still sleeping Naruto as she thought. What could someone so young have done to earn such a beating? I've had my fair share of attempts, but that was just beyond brutal. She'd seen Naruto around and sure, the kid pulled some pranks every now and then, but nothing to warrant this kind of brutality. That was something else. Naruto's young form was completely bloody, his orange tracksuit ripped, his chest slashed, his nose broken, a bust lip, black and swollen eyes, swollen jaw, and numerous other injuries. There was an Anbu with long purple hair in front of them tending to the boy's wounds. While most healed themselves, given who he was, anything broken had to be placed before it healed wrong and the extra help didn't hurt. Although the Anbu wore a mask, Anko knew who it was. Neko Ne-chan, will he be alright? The masked Anbu nodded. He'll be fine, Anko-chan. Naruto-kun always heals fast. Anko heard the always comment and she flinched. Exactly. How many times has he been beaten like this? She asked, not sure if she actually wanted an answer. He was so badly injured she didn't want to think about someone having to go through something like that multiple times. There was silence for a few minutes before Hiruzen spoke. He's here for treatment almost 3 times a week if not more, and this is only the first this week. It's regrettable but it's been like this for the whole of his young life. The statement shocked Anko to her core. What the hell? He's been beaten like this multiple times a week, but that just doesn't make sense. What possible reason could those bastards have for doing this to him? He's just a kid. Hiruzen scowled. Ignorant reasons. That's why. The villagers don't know what they're doing. They blame Naruto-kun for things, not of his own doing. So much so that he's even adopted to using a mask over the years to hide the pain. Most see him as a hyperactive happy boy who just wants to be noticed, when in reality it's just a mask he wears. Those pranks he pulls are all an act. I check up on Naruto-kun regularly. Most nights I do so with my crystal ball jutsu, only to find him crying his heart out into his pillow in bed in loneliness. It's the only time he drops his mask. Both Anbu and Anko were clenching their fists in anger. The Anbu scowled behind her mask. She knew the reason for this as she had been briefed when joining Anbu about any threats to the village. The kyuubi container was always a possible risk, but she couldn't speak of that outright due to the Sandame's laws. Anko snarled. What was out of his control to merit this kind of treatment? Hiruzen lowered his head. It's an S-class secret that no one is allowed to speak of under penalty of death, a law I passed. Anko tightened her fists. Forgive me for being so forthright, Hokage-sama, but that's just bullshit on so many levels. It looks like everyone in the village already knows about whatever it is, so what's the point in forbidding them to talk about it? So Naruto-kun and the others his age don't find out. I'm not sure how he'd react to the news, and it was the only way I could think of to give him a chance at a normal childhood, Hiruzen said sadly. Anko looked at the elderly Hokage in rage. so even he doesn't know why he's being attacked and beaten multiple times a week. That's just plain wrong. Hiruzen nodded. I know it is, but he will be told when he is ready. He starts the academy in a few weeks, so if he passes and becomes a genin at 16 and then chunin after, then I will reveal it to him. Anko slammed her hands on the Hokage's desk, trying to rein in her anger at what she was hearing. With all due respect, at the rate he is getting beaten, he won't make it to genin, screw chunin. And that's at least another 4 years of beatings, of not knowing why, even if he does make it to genin. Hiruzen sighed. Yugao, remove your mask. The Neko Anbu took off her mask and nodded, as Hiruzen set down his pipe. Yugao, what do you believe? I know you've been assigned to guard Naruto-kun at least once a week on the rotation, and there has never been an incident while you were on duty. Do you believe he is ready to know what we're talking about? Yugao nodded. I do. I believe that Naruto-kun has much more intelligence than he lets on. The level of sophistication in the traps he uses in his pranks show great planning and skill, as well as a sense of style and appreciation for his work. He is hiding a lot more than just his emotions. If trained properly, he will make a fine shinobi. I see no harm in telling him now. Hiruzen nodded as he lifted up his pipe for another drag before releasing it with a sigh. Very well then, I believe I know a way that this might just work out for the best, but we will wait until Naruto-kun wakes up to discuss further. I will tell him and you, Anko, why he has been targeted, and finally tell him and give him something that should make his life a little easier. Scene break. After a few more minutes, Naruto finally started to wake up, groaning, Ow, that hurt. Where am I? Hiruzen smiles hearing Naruto's voice. In my office, Naruto. You were rescued and brought here for rest and safety by an academy student. Groaning, Naruto sat up, rubbing the back of his head with his eyes closed. Ouch, thanks, Gigi. If you could tell that academy student I owe them one. Anko smirked hearing that, and I'll collect on it, she voiced, looking at the blonde with a smirk. Hearing the voice, Naruto's eyes opened to see the girl that it came from. Damn, she was cute. He blinked a few times. I take it you're the one who saved me? Naruto asked, looking at the girl only 2 years his elder. You've got that right. Name's Anko Mitarashi. Gaki, she smirked. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. Thanks for the save. Name's Naruto Uzumaki, not Gaki. Naruto spoke, emphasizing the not part. Anko smirked. Whatever you say, Gaki. She grinned. Naruto's eye twitched again as he stood up. Well, thanks for the breather, Gigi. I think I'll head home. Naruto turned towards the door to leave, but as he did, he felt a little chill. Before he looked down and his eyes widened. Aw crap. What happened to my clothes? They look like I've been. Oh yeah, I was. Great. Just great, and this was my last good set and it cost me 7,000 ryo. Hearing the price tag on that ridiculously horrible tracksuit, both Anko and Yugao looked to the Hokage, whose eyes were shadowed under his hat, as a small amount of killing intent I leaked off him as he started to talk. Naruto, just where did you buy that monstro? He started but stopped before rephrasing, I mean the tracksuit. Naruto looked back to his grandfather figure, the civilian clothing store on the main street. Why? Hiruzen waved him off. Well, that's another one of those bastards for the rack and a visit to Ibiki. 7,000 ryo for that monstrosity. Civilian stores can't sell anything over 3,000 as per my law. And even at that, there's no way that thing would be worth that. Obviously overpricing him because of who he is. Never mind, Naruto. Never mind. I was hoping you could stay a short time. There are some things I'd like to talk about with you, if that's alright. Naruto gulped and waved his hands above his head frantically. If this is about the pink clothes dye in the Anbu uniform wash, I didn't do it. At that, Hiruzen blinked. Yugao looked at him wide-eyed and Anko looked like she was about to bust a gut in laughter, as 3 other Anbu dropped from the ceiling, their usual all-black attire, now a bright fluorescent pink, as they pointed at Naruto and yelled, "It was you." At that moment, Naruto and Anko couldn't hold their laughter as they fell to the ground, clutching their guts, laughing at the sight of the 3 bright pink Anbu. Yugao looked to be just about holding her own laughter back. Luckily for her, she always washed her uniform at home and not at HQ, which begged the question. Just how did Naruto get into the most heavily guarded place in the whole village to pull his prank? While wearing a bright, kill me now, orange tracksuit. Hiruzen hid his laughter behind a small sigh, all the while thinking, just like Kushina, always pranking, before clearing his throats making the Anbu salute before returning to their posts grumbling. Hiruzen smiled. No Naruto-kun, it isn't about that, it's just that I believe it's time I told you a few things that I have been keeping secret from you. The young Naruto blinked. You've been hiding things from me, Gigi? Naruto asked in a hurt tone. Hiruzen nodded sadly. Not because I wanted to, Naruto-kun. It's that it was necessary for your safety at the time, and on some level, I wasn't sure how you would take it. But I think you're ready to know now. Please take a seat. Hiruzen gestured in a kind tone. Naruto nodded his head in understanding and walked over to the chair in front of the Hokage's desk and sat down. Hiruzen nodded as Anko and Yugao took their seats also. Hiruzen looked to Naruto. Naruto, my boy, before we can begin, there is one thing I would like to ask you to do. Naruto blinked. What is it, Gigi? He asked with a big grin. Hiruzen frowned. Please take off that mask and show us the real you. Naruto immediately stiffened and his smile disappeared. This didn't go unnoticed by the two beside him seeing his reaction. Naruto gulped slightly. Gigi, how do you know about that? The elderly Hokage frowned, looking sadly at the boy. There isn't much I don't know, Naruto. Now please, let us see the real you that you keep hidden behind that mask. The young blonde tightened his fists and his body tensed slightly before relaxing. You could honestly see his eyes lose some of their brightness and innocence as he did so, as a serious look covered his face. Hi, Hokage-sama, Naruto responded, making the old man look visibly shocked. Naruto never called him that. He had always called him Gigi, or Hokage Gigi. Hearing the formal name and in such a tone took him back for a second and he frowned. Naruto, is this the real you? Hiruzen asked sadly. Naruto nodded. Hi, Hokage-sama, it is. Hiruzen's fists tightened a bit in anger seeing his unofficial grandson this serious and hearing such a tone from him at such an age. What has this village done to you, Naruto? Naruto, you can dispense with the formal titles. They aren't required at this moment, especially with what I'm going to tell you, Hiruzen said in a sad tone, desperately hoping to see some resemblance of the boy he had watched day by day happily go about pranking and not letting the looks the villagers gave him get to him. No, not even a flicker, just a nod, hi, was all he got. Clenching his fists tighter for a second before finally giving up and releasing them with a sigh. Very well then, let's get down to business. It's time I told you about. He was about to continue when Naruto spoke. Excuse me for interrupting, but I do believe we're not alone, Naruto said as he looked over to the bookcase. This got the attention from the other occupants of the room. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Assuming that you only have 3 Anbu in this room, all in pink I might add, there is another one hidden in the bookshelf watching us right now, Naruto reported, making the other 3 Anbu drop from the ceiling around the bookcase, weapons drawn. When suddenly, a black figure burst from behind the bookcase and tried to make an escape, only to be restrained by the other Anbu. Lifting the man up, he wore a white animal mask like Anbu, but on the forehead was the kanji for Nei, Gen. Seeing this, Hiruzen clenched his fists again. Nay, damn you Danzo, I ordered that little group of yours disbanded, and now I find you spying on me. Take him to the T&I department, and have Ibiki informed I will be along within an hour or so, Hiruzen ordered, getting nods from the 3 Anbu as they shunshin away with the man in restraints. When they left, the Hokage looked to Naruto along with Anko and Yugao. Naruto, how did you know he was there when the rest of us didn't? Hiruzen asked. Naruto looked to him. A year or so ago my senses started to become more delicate, my sight and sense of sound and smell all became sharper. I could see things in greater detail and at greater distances, and I could smell the faintest smell, but also pick up on the more foul odors. I had to figure out how to cut the chakra to my nose for a while and stop smelling for a week while I aired out my apartment. One bonus was I could smell any extra ingredients to any food I bought so as not to poison myself. My hearing became so fine I could hear the faintest sounds and distinguish them from others. It's so fine I can hear heartbeats. There were 4 of us and 3 Anbu in the room, but yet I heard 8 heartbeats. I merely followed my ears to find the one who didn't belong. Naruto reported, not missing a beat. This made Hiruzen's eyes widen slightly. Perhaps it's the Cubus chakra making him stronger. If so, all the better. I tell him now. I see. Then it's a good thing I'm choosing to tell you this now, because if what I suspect is correct, then both this and your heightened senses are connected. This made Naruto's eyes widen slightly as he looked to the Hokage with a nod of understanding, as he took his seat again. Hiruzen sighed as Anko and Yugao took their seats also. I suppose I should start with your parents, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes widened. But you said you didn't. Hiruzen raised his hand. I did. But that was because of who they were. They both had many enemies, your two-san especially, and you being announced as his son would have made you a prime target for assassination attempts. Naruto nodded slowly, understanding. Are they still? Hiruzen shook his head. I'm sorry, my boy, both of them died the night you were born, but I can tell you about them. Hiruzen smiled slightly, hoping to cheer the boy up some. Naruto nodded slightly and a small smile graced his face at the thought of hearing about them. I'd like that, thanks, Gigi. Hearing the affectionate name Naruto called him again made the Hokage smile. Well, at least there's still some of you in there. First, your Ka-san. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes widened. Yes, you take your name from her side of the family. She couldn't give it up due to her being the last of her clan. Naruto's eyes started to tear slightly. I had a clan. Hiruzen nodded. Yes, the Uzumaki clan from Uzushiogakure village hidden in the whirlpools. They were the Leaf Village's greatest allies during the First and Second Shinobi Wars. Sadly though, towards the end of the second, in a combined attack from the Iwagakure village hidden in the stone and Kumogakure village hidden in the clouds, they were wiped out. Your Ka-san survived due to her two-san, Mamoru Uzumaki, clan head, sending her away when they heard of the attack coming. They entrusted her with the entire clan jutsu library and funds, because they knew the clan wouldn't survive the attack coming. Your Ka-san was one of the most headstrong, impulsive, eccentric, and stubborn girls you would ever meet. She was fun-loving and was always playing pranks on anyone who made fun of her bright red hair. Ironic that her hair was part of the reason she was so memorable in the Third Shinobi War. She gained the title of Red Hot-Blooded Habanero. She was a master of her clan's Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu and was deadly on the battlefield, with them both in combination and with her special chakra chains that were unique to her. When she found out she was pregnant with you, her and your two-san were so excited, they couldn't wait to be parents and to watch you grow up, but sadly it wasn't meant to be, Hiruzen said with a sigh. So they did love me. I always wondered if they did or not, if that was the reason they gave me up, but seeing as they're both dead I can understand, Naruto said with a small frown as he wiped a tear away from his eye. That you can be sure of, Naruto-kun. I had never seen more people more excited to be parents than yours. Now Naruto, before I tell you of your two-san, there is one thing I want you to understand first. Should you decide to take his family name as your own, you can't do it until you become a genin. At least that way you will be able to protect yourself when you do, and you can't tell anyone you're his son until then. It would cause major complications and a lot of trouble, do you understand? Hiruzen said in a serious tone. Naruto nodded. I understand, Gigi. The Hokage nodded. Your two-san's name was Minato Namikaze, but you would know him better as the Yondaime. I'm the son of the fourth Hokage, Naruto said, speechless at that very moment, not sure how to handle this. He was the son of the village hero, the man who died defeating the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and who practically single-handedly ended the Third Shinobi War with his version Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, a technique that he had copied from the Nadaime. He was a master of the art of Fuinjutsu, one of the only recorded students of the legendary Sannin Jiraiya, who had been a student of the third Hokage, but if that was the case there was only one thing that he couldn't grasp now: why? Quote, the three occupants of the room looked at him in confusion. Why what, Naruto? Asked Hiruzen, seeing the blonde clench his fists. Why, if I'm the son of the fourth, am I treated like the scum of the earth? Why am I treated like this, beaten on a weekly basis? I was kicked out of the orphanage at 4, I had to survive on the streets for 2 weeks eating garbage, sleeping in a cardboard box, trying not to lose my fingertips to rats. If I'm the son of the fourth, why am I treated like I'm a plague? Why do I get glared at like I'm a murderer? Naruto started as his voice rose into a yell as tears started to flow down his cheeks. Anko looked at the boy younger than her. She hadn't known about the boy's life before and she was shocked hearing it. She couldn't even comprehend what he had done to deserve this treatment, and being the Yondaime's son means he should have been living in the lap of luxury, and if his Ka-san was some clan head then he should be loaded, and yet he looked to be malnourished and dressed in the most horrible clothes possible. She had known hell. Her parents had died when she was 3, so she was an orphan too, but she had been taken in by the Sannin Orochimaru when she was 6. He had seen potential in her and had taken her as his student and even let her sign the snake contract at the age of 8. Of course, things had all went sideways a year later when it was discovered he was a traitor and was kidnapping shinobi and civilians for experiments. He had tried to take her with him when he left, but she didn't want to leave. That's when he turned on her and gave her a curse mark before leaving her to her suffering. After that night, when all his crimes were revealed, even though she had refused him, she was seen as nothing more than his pupil after that day, and people treated her like she was him. So being shunned and glared at and treated like crap she knew all too well. Of course, she at least had yugao. She had been the one who found her the night Orochimaru had left the village and took her to the Hokage who had helped her through the curse mark. But unfortunately he couldn't remove it. It was doubtful anyone could, and so the mark served as a reminder of her sensei all these years. Yugao had become like a big sister to Anko. The two shared a 2-bedroom apartment while Anko was in the academy. He's treated worse than me, but it doesn't make sense. Why? Hiruzen stood up, taking in a breath of his pipe, and looked out the window to the village below, because this village is filled with stupid civilians that can't tell the difference between a container and its content, and is full of resentment, anger and hatred towards someone who had no control over and say in what happened to him. Hiruzen growled angrily, releasing a little bit of ki at the village in his anger. Yugao looked down ashamed in agreement, but both Naruto and Anko still looked confused as to what the old man was talking about. Gigi, what are you saying? What container? What content? The old man sat down with a defeated look on his face. He was getting too old for this shit. He just sighed. Naruto, what is your 2-san best known for? Killing the kyuubi on the. Wait, both my parents died the night I was born on the. Then they both died fighting, but how? Naruto rambled, holding his head as all the facts started to come together. Hiruzen nodded. You're starting to see, Naruto. Both your parents died protecting the village from the kyuubi attack. No one knew where the kyuubi came from, as it just appeared out of nowhere that night, but in truth, the kyuubi had been in the village for many years, but it had been sealed away. First it was sealed away into the wife of the Shodai Hokage. Her name was Mito Uzumaki. Your grand aunt, Mito-sama, was sister to Mamoru Uzumaki. And the marriage between her and Hashirama Senju bonded the two clans. She was the first Jinchuriki of the kyuubi. When she was dying, she passed that duty on to the only other one who could take it. The only Uzumaki left at the time, your Ka-san Kushina, was the second Jinchuriki of the kyuubi. Because of the Uzumaki's abnormally large chakra capacity and as such abnormally large chakra coils, which dwarf most kage, even my own, they were best suited to hold the kyuubi's vast chakra. No one knows what happened, but the night of your birth the kyuubi broke free from your Ka-san seal and attacked the village, and so your 2-san did the only thing he could do. The kyuubi is a mass of chakra, it can't be killed, so he had only one option left. He sealed it in the only vessel that could hold it. He sealed it inside of me. The kyuubi no kitsune, the demon that killed a third of the village, is sealed inside of me, Naruto said aloud in realization. Hiruzen nodded, and was about to speak again, but Naruto continued. Now it all makes sense. The villagers, they see me as the kyuubi. They see me as the one who killed their loved ones. Those dumb idiots. I'm not even an academy student yet, and even I know the difference between a kunai and the scroll it's stored in. Those complete tards. That's it. The next time they attack me I'm kicking some. To hell with running. I'm done with that. I'm going to kill the lot of them. Yugao blinked for a second, looking at the blonde who had just taken a complete 180 in personality. 1 second he looked like he was about to cry, and now he looked like he was ready to take the next guy's head off him that looks at him wrong. What's with this kid? Yugao, though, as she gave a small smirk. Anko couldn't help but grin and laugh, looking at Naruto. I like your way of thinking, Gaki. I'll even lend ya a hand. I could use the practice. Hiruzen sighed hearing this. I pity the next ones who try anything with these two teamed up. I can just feel a headache coming on from the council screaming, and that Haruno woman screams shatter glass. I think she's part banshee. Hiruzen took a breath. Well, you do start the academy in 3 weeks, Naruto, and when you become a shinobi of the village there are laws preventing the civilians from touching you, giving you right to use lethal force. Not that I would condone such things, but it's food for thought, Hiruzen said with a smirk of his own. Both Anko and Naruto started grinning like mad remembering that, and both Yugao and Hiruzen had the same thoughts. Kami-sama help the village when these two team up. Hiruzen cleared his throat. Naruto-kun, you also have an inheritance that your parents left you. Sadly their house was destroyed in the kyuubi attack, but with your 2-san and Ka-san being masters of fuinjutsu had a backup plan that if the house was destroyed, all objects in the house marked with a seal were transferred into a sealing scroll in this office. They also gave me control over both the Namikaze and Uzumaki banking accounts should anything happen to them. I've been using some of the money to support you anytime you asked for an advance or increase, due to other matters not making it possible, but it hasn't even made a dent seeing as the Uzumaki were, to be blunt, filthy rich from their work, and as per the arrangement in your parents' will. 5% of the funds are available to you until your genin, when the rest will be available to you. Naruto nodded. Thanks, Gigi. Good to know I've got cash to burn, seeing as how the shops charge me triple the legal asking price. Hiruzen blinked. You knew? Naruto nodded. Of course I did. I'm not as dumb as I look wearing this monstrosity, Gigi. It was all the mask I was wearing. That, and it's all clothes the shops would sell me. Hiruzen nodded, visibly angry. I see. Well, I'll see what I can do about that. Do you have clothes to wear now, Naruto? Naruto shook his head. No, this was my last tracksuit. I had 4 pairs, but they've all ended up like this one or worse. I see. Well, we'll just have to get you some new clothes tomorrow. For now, Hiruzen snapped his fingers and an Anbu in pink appeared, holding a black shirt, making Anko and Naruto giggle again, as the Anbu tossed the shirt at Naruto before disappearing. The shirt was a few sizes too big, but he just pulled off his old one. Much to Anko's shock, he wasn't malnourished, he was actually well-toned with no fat on him whatsoever. He was well built for that of a 12-year-old. As he pulled on the new shirt and tucked it in, he got a blinking response from Anko. Damn it, Gaki. How did you get so ripped? And you're only 12. Anko said, licking her lips. Naruto shrugged. I'm planning to be a shinobi, so I have to be in shape. When I knew I was going to the academy, I'd planned to take the mask off and show everyone what I was really like. Now hearing all this, I plan to kick butt even more. Hiruzen smiled hearing that. Well, if that's the case, Naruto, I think I have just the things to get you started, he said as he got up and walked over to a safe, opening it and pulling out a scroll. Walking back to his desk, he opened it, revealing a storage seal array. Channeling chakra into it, there were a series of puffs of smoke. As it cleared, it showed a few things. One was another scroll, 2 letters, and the final was a small box about the size of a loaf of bread. Hiruzen lifted up the 2 letters and handed them to Naruto. Your parents gave me these to give to you when I finally told you about them. I'm sure you'll want to read them in private, but come see me if you have any questions. Naruto looked at the letters for a few moments and then smiled. Thanks, Gigi. Hiruzen nodded before handing him the scroll, and in this is the instructions on how to perform the Kage Bunshin Shadow Clone no Jutsu. Kushina was never able to perform the regular Bunshin clone jutsu because of her massive amounts of chakra. As an Uzumaki, it's impossible for someone so young to perform it, so the Kage Bunshin will be your version of it. Your Ka-san left you her notes on it in the scroll as well. I hope it helps. Naruto smiled. I'm sure it will, Gigi. I'll start learning it tomorrow after I get some new clothes. Hiruzen nodded. And finally, I have this for you, Hiruzen said as he pushed the box forward, opening it up as the front pulled away, showing a collection of blank scrolls and paper with 5 ink bottles, brushes, and a scroll labeled Fuinjutsu Book 1, Beginner 1. Naruto blinked at it and then looked to Hiruzen. If you're anything like your parents, you'll be a genius at Fuinjutsu like both of them. Your Ka-san was a master of your clan's Fuinjutsu style, and she taught your two-san everything she knew. It was because of your mother's teaching that your two-san was able to create his own version of the Nadime's Haraishin if you do decide to pick it up then. Naruto smiled. That's perfect, Gigi. I was planning in the future to actually study Fuinjutsu later on at the academy, but if I can start it early, then that would be great. Hiruzen frowned. Actually, Naruto, Fuinjutsu isn't taught at the academy. The academy covers the 3 basics, ninjutsu, taijutsu and genjutsu, along with the history of the elemental nations and other things deemed relevant by the civilian council. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Maybe I'm just not getting the full picture here, but is that right? I mean, a civilian council, deciding what's right to be taught in a shinobi academy in a shinobi village. Shouldn't it be the shinobi side and you who decide that, Gigi? Hiruzen nodded. You would think so, but I've got so much paperwork I don't have time to work everything. Damn paperwork. Naruto blinked. Ah, what about that Kage Bunshin? If I'm reading this right, they retain all your memories, Naruto said as he read the first few lines of the scroll out of curiosity, so why not create a few of them to do the paperwork for you, Gigi? At that very moment you could hear a fly fart in the room, and then the next second Hiruzen lunged across the table at Naruto, hugging him. Thank you, Naruto, thank you. I have been trying to get away from that paperwork for years and now it might be finally possible. Thank Kami-sama for you, Naruto. Both Anko and Yugao looked at the scene, sweat dropping, and the next second Hiruzen was back on his feet coughing. That incident is now classified SSS class. Talking about it means immediate death, am I clear? He said in a serious voice. But all 3 just burst out laughing. That's a good one, Gigi. Hiruzen sighed, walking back to his desk. Now, Naruto, I think it would be best that you moved apartments, seeing as how your other one is so run down. I will begin looking for a new place for you to stay tomorrow, while we go clothes shopping for you. Yugao interrupted then. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, I believe I may have a place that could accommodate Naruto-kun here. There is an apartment in the complex where myself and Anko live just next door. The rent is 750 ryo a month, and it is spacious enough for a boy of his age. Naruto smiled. That sounds perfect. That's 3 times cheaper than what I'm currently paying for rent, so I'm already sold. The Hokage looked at Naruto. Naruto, what do you mean? Your rent is only 450 ryo a month and it comes out of the treasury as you're an orphan. Naruto just slapped his own forehead. How didn't I get that? Damn stupid landlord's been charging me 2500 ryo every month out of my own pocket. Hiruzen clenched his fists, finally having enough of this, before snapping his fingers, making an Anbu appear who wasn't in pink. Arrest the landlord for crimes of tax evasion and cheating the treasury, take him to Ibiki and inform the scum all assets of his are seized, and he is stripped of his citizenship and all his assets transferred under the name Naruto Uzumaki, mark them as reparations for crimes against himself. The Anbu nodded, before disappearing. Hiruzen nodded and looked to Naruto. Congratulations Naruto, you are now a property owner. Everyone's sweat dropped and Naruto shrugged. Well, I can just knock it all down and sell off the land, the place is a dump. The girls and Hokage nodded, and then spoke. Right, shall we go and see this apartment then Naruto? I'll have you put on the lease by night's end. Naruto grinned. Sounds good to me. With a smile, all four of them started walking off to go see Naruto's new apartment. With one thing was certain, things were going to change a lot. Naruto opens his eyes and blinks, looking up at the unfamiliar ceiling. Where the hell am? Oh yay, my new apartment. The blonde stood up and rolled up the futon he had been using the night previously that the Hokage had sent one of his Anbu for until they got Naruto his furniture later that day. Naruto looked over to the side of his room to see the chest, scroll, and letters the Hokage had given him. Deciding now was as good a time as any to read the letters, he picked them up and slid down the wall and opened the first of the letters. It was a woman's handwriting. Dear Naruto-kun, if you are reading this, then the worst has come to pass and I and your two-san are no longer alive. I want to apologize for that. Above all, I did not want to leave you. Even though I only got to hold you for a few minutes, I will always hold those minutes close to my heart. You look so adorable. I am writing this as your two-san holds you. You look so much like him. I can already tell you're going to be a real lady killer when you grow up, just like your two-san. I hope you grow up to be a kind, strong and gentle man. My only regret is that I won't be there to see it. There is so much I want to say, so much I want to tell you, so many memories I want to share, so much I want to know. I wonder what your life will be like after we're gone. I wonder who will be your first love, your favorite food, color, book, your first words. Oh, Naruto-kun, I don't want to leave you, but I have no choice. The kyuubi was ripped from me and set on a rampage, and the only way to seal it is in an Uzumaki. I can't do it in my weakened state, it would only break free again, it has to be you. I have pleaded with your two-san to find another way, but there isn't time. I just hope that the village will see you for the hero you are, keeping the kyuubi at bay. Please forgive me for leaving you Naruto, it is not by my choice, just know that you are loved and will always be loved. All the love in the world. Your Ka-san, Kushina Uzumaki. Halfway through the letter, Naruto had started tearing up and now he was crying his heart out as tears flowed from his eyes as he read the letter over and over again through watery eyes. Finally, after crying for what seemed like hours, he folded the letter and put it to the side as he opened the second letter. Dear Naruto, since you're reading this, then that means the old monkey finally told you who we were. I'm sure that came as a bit of a shock, didn't it? It also means that you've been told that you hold the kyuubi and that I was the one to seal it inside of you. I wish there was more time to look for another way to do it. I wish we had more time, but as I write this, your Ka-san is lying down with you in her arms and the kyuubi is being held back from the village by our shinobi. They can't last much longer, so I must be brief. Your Ka-san won't be around to tell you this as the kyuubi was ripped from her. Jinchurikis can't survive without their biju in them, and right now it's only her will keeping her alive, but she can't last much longer. She doesn't want me to seal it in you, but there is no one else that can hold the kyuubi, and even if there was, as Hokage, I can't ask someone else to give up their child for such a task. The kyuubi was ripped from your Ka-san by a man in a cloak and mask with one eye socket. I chased him off, but the kyuubi is still on the rampage. I don't know why he did it, but what's done is done. Though he may return in the future, so be on alert. I know you will be strong enough to fight off whatever comes at you. You are my son, after all, I believe you can do it. I have told the old monkey you are to take your Ka-san's name, as I know that if you are named my son and the Jinchuriki, then your life will be far too dangerous. But if you want to take my name, I have made preparations. Sealed at the back of this letter are blood samples of both mine and your Ka-san's, along with your birth certificate. The hospital will also have mine and Kushina's blood on record. Give them to the old man when or if you want to take on my name, they will prove you are our son. Also sealed is the remains of your Ka-san's sword. It was broken in the attack when the man in the mask took you and killed Sarutobi's wife. I didn't tell him this so he could focus on the battle and not go searching for the man who is already long gone, so I now leave that to you. Gaman Nasai. There should be a blacksmith weapons shop called Shinobi Arms. The owner Daichi Oshiro was the only one your Ka-san allowed to even touch her blade apart from herself or me. He was also the one who made my Hiraishin kunai. Once he sees the sword he will no doubt put the facts together. If you want to learn your Ka-san's clan's kenjutsu, I'm sure that would make her very happy, so I've sealed away the beginner scroll in the letter as well along with a few of your Ka-san's clan jutsu. The rest I'm sure the old monkey can give you from our vault. They are quite a drain on chakra from those who are not an Uzumaki, but with such large reserves already I know you will be just fine. I have to go now. Just know that I will always love you and that I can only hope that you can come to forgive me for putting this burden on you and then leaving you. I know you will make us both proud. With all the love I can give. Your two-san Minato Namikaze Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. Naruto slowly set the letter, taking a deep breath as a few tears escaped his eyes. I forgive you two-san, and I will make you proud. Looking to the back of the letter, there was a large seal on it. Channeling chakra into it, poofed, unsealing the contents. On the floor now in front of him sat an assortment of objects. First there was a birth certificate with 2 files of blood on it. There were 5 scrolls with different colored bands around them, and finally a katana. It was magnificent. The handle was wooden with a gold hilt with a red cloth grip to the guard, which was also golden, which was actually the Uzumaki swirl. The blade was broken in the middle, but as his two-san had mentioned, the blade had been so when sealed. A scroll beside it was full of the Uzumaki Kenjutsu. Naruto let his hand glide over the handle of the kanata. Don't worry Ka-san, I'll make you both proud. Naruto then looked at the Kage Bunshin scroll, and I'll start right now. Taking the scroll he started reading it back to front and reread his Ka-san's notes. Kage Bunshin. This technique creates copies of the user. However, these clones are corporeal instead of illusions. The user's chakra is evenly distributed among every clone, giving each clone an equal fraction of the user's overall power. The clones are capable of performing techniques on their own and can even bleed, but will usually disperse after hit by a strong enough force. The clones can also disperse on their own or be dispelled by the user of the technique. Shadow clones can't be distinguished from the original with the Sharingan or Byakugan dojutsu, which is handy to use when fighting them. Also, they come in handy when doing chores around the house. A handy thing to remember about the Kage Bunshin technique is that the user retains all the memories from the clones once they are dispelled. This makes techniques that require muscle memory or memorizing information easier to get down. As they say, 2 heads are better than 1. Though for an Uzumaki it's more like 200. Extra note. Must teach this technique to Minato. This technique would be great in bed. Reading that last bit, Naruto immediately blushed red, realizing what it meant, and then shook his head. Oh great, my Ka-san was a pervert. Well, at least I know where I get that part of me from. But those clones sound really handy. Muscle memory, that's like stances, punches, kick, hand signs and movements like writing. This could really help me out when I start learning Fuinjutsu. Naruto grinned. Well, I guess I know what I'm learning first, but I've only got a few hours until Gigi comes to get me and we go furniture and clothes shopping. Plenty of time to get this one down. Now let's see here. Time skip 1 hour later. There was a knock at the door and Naruto walked over to answer it. He opened it to show a smirking Anko. Morning Gaki. How's things? Anko asked with a grin. Naruto smirked back. Going slow this morning, trying to get this Kage Bunshin jutsu down, never learned a jutsu before. Anko chuckled. I'll give ya a hand then. I always wanted to learn some other type of clone aside from the regular, she said as she came in and the two sat down and started going over the scroll. Naruto looked to Anko. Thanks again for the save yesterday, you really saved my. Anko giggled. No problem Gaki, it's a nice to be saving. Naruto looked to Anko. You only just met me yesterday and now you're complimenting my. You sure do have a strange sense of timing, especially for someone around our ages. Anko shrugged. What can I say? A girl likes what she likes. Naruto shook his head with a smirk and went back to reading the scroll. Time skip 1 more hour later. Hiruzen walked to Naruto's new apartment and knocked on the door. Hearing a whole pile of ruckus inside, he raised an eyebrow. What's going on in there? The next thing, the door opened, showing the room full of Naruto and 2 Anko being tossed about like beach balls. This isn't funny Gaki. Anko yelled as she was tossed yet again. The Naruto clones were all laughing watching them go. We think it is. All the clones yelled laughing. But then Hiruzen coughed, getting everyone's attention, causing all the clones to drop the 2 girls, one going off in a poof, and then in another larger explosion of smoke the horde of Naruto clones disappeared, leaving only one with a grin on his face. Hey Gigi, we were wondering when you were going to get here. Hiruzen chuckled, hearing the blonde. Well Naruto, I can see both you and Anko have the cage bunchin' down. Impressive, learning an A-rank ninjutsu in just a few hours, and your very first one also. You certainly are your 2 sans son. Naruto grinned, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't until Anko-chan came over and helped me that I finally got it down flat. The Hokage blinked and smiled. Oh, so it's Anko-chan, now is it? My, aren't you 2 getting friendly quickly? He grinned. Naruto chuckled. Oh, 2 can play at that game Gigi. Well, you know what they say about those who become ninja, old enough to kill and all that, plus she's cute, I wouldn't mind. The old Hokage's eyes widened, hearing that as he felt a nosebleed just about to come on. He quickly turned and coughed, bringing his hand up to cover it. Cough. Quite right Naruto-kun, quite right. Now let's be off. We still have to get you sorted with clothes and new furnishings for your apartment, he said, starting to walk away. Naruto was about to follow when he felt a weight being draped over his shoulders. He looked back to see Anko leaning on him with a very big grin. What was that all for Gaki? Did you just say that to bust his balls, or did you actually mean that you said? She asked with a suggestive tone in her voice but with a slight hint of fear. Naruto heard the slight tone in her voice. Truthfully, yes. But you have to understand Anko-chan, I've never had very many friends, you'd probably be the first. I didn't want to do anything to risk that friendship so soon. When I saw you, you were gorgeous, you're beautiful and strong, clever, and don't judge me for having the kyuubi in me. I'd have to be a complete moron not to have feelings for you. Anko was taken back by that. Here was this boy she had only just met the other day, complimenting her like that, calling her beautiful and telling her he has feelings for her. For some reason it made her feel nice. She smiled, not seductively, not sadistically, but happily. You really think that? She blushed for the first time in her life. The young snake charmer blushed. Naruto nodded. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. So Anko-chan, what do you say, should we give it a go, slowly, to see where it leads? Anko blushed again with a smile. Sure, I wouldn't mind. Naruto smiled, holding out his hand. She slowly took it and they began to walk forward to the door. Anko looked at Naruto, who had a slight smile on his lips. It made her smile. You know Naruto-kun, you're my first real friend too. Naruto looked to her, sad, hearing that. I'm sorry to hear that. Anko nodded softly. It was because of my first sensei. When I was 7 years old, I was taken under his wing. He trained me, but when I was 9, he was branded a traitor for crimes against the village. He left and tried to take me with him, but I refused to go. It's because of him that I'm looked at as if I was the traitor, as if I'm him. Naruto stopped. Hearing that, Anko's heart hitched. What if he thought of her the same way? What if he was just like all the others? What if? Her thoughts were halted when Naruto wrapped his arms around her and held her in a hug. I'm sorry, he said softly, and he hugged her, making Anko's eyes widen. What did he have to be sorry for? I'm sorry you had to go through all the pain you have. I'm sorry we couldn't have been friends sooner, but I swear I will not let anyone hurt you again. Hearing that almost brought Anko to tears. She hugged onto the younger boy for dear life. Naruto smiled, feeling her hug him tighter and let the girl have her moment, before they separated and walked out of the apartment hand in hand. But before they did, Naruto quickly ran back and took his Ka-san's broken sword, which was sealed inside a scroll, with him before they walked out. As they walked out, the Hokage looked to them and see them holding hands, and he smiled. Good for you, Naruto, good for you. Well, shall we get going? We have lots to buy. Both Naruto and Anko nodded and walked along with the Hokage, heading for the shops. Scene break. Both Naruto and Anko walked down the street beside the Hokage. Naruto looked to the elderly Hokage. Gigi, do you know of a shop called Shinobi Arms? Hiruzen nodded. Why, yes, I do, Naruto. It's run by an old friend of your two-san's. The man knew your two-san back in the academy and even became a shinobi, but retired after a mission of his went bad and he lost his teammates sadly. He now runs the shop. Your two-san and Ka-san used to visit it frequently. Why do you ask? Naruto tapped the scroll he had. My Ka-san left me her sword, though it was broken in the incident when the kyuubi was released. My two-san said in the letter to take it to him for repairs, as he's the only one Ka-san ever allowed to work on her blade. Also, after this, there's something I need to tell you about what happened the day of my birth, about how the kyuubi was released and what happened after. The elderly Hokage saw the look in the boy's eyes of sadness. Whatever it was painful for someone, the Hokage nodded. All right, my boy, after we're done shopping, we'll go back to my office to talk. Naruto nodded in thanks. He wasn't looking forward to telling the man he looked up to as a grandfather about that night, about how the man who not only released the kyuubi, that caused both his parents' deaths, was also the one who killed his wife. It would not be a pleasant conversation. Scene break. The bell rang as the three of them walked into the store. As they did, a man came out. He was huge, at least 7 foot tall, with a body that looked like a hunk of muscle. He wore a black shirt and thick navy cloth pants. His hair was long and black but was kept in a braid that ran to the middle of his back. He wore a white blacksmith's apron over his front, which had multiple marks on it showing it was worn a lot. Coming out of the back, the man blinked, seeing the two children coming into his store along with that of the Hokage of the village. The man immediately lowered his head. Hokage-sama, it's an honor for you to grace my store with your presence today. What might I help you with? The elderly Hokage smiled, seeing the man again. Ah, Daichi-kun, it's good to see you again. It's been too long. I'm just bringing along this one here to get him kitted out in some new attire. He personally requested to come here. The large man blinked and looked to the young blonde boy, knowing who he was in an instant. Not many didn't know of the kyuubi container in the older generations, but he knew his friend's work would hold and didn't hold the fact against the boy. Oh well, this is a surprise. Boy, why did you request to come here? Not that I'm not flattered, but normally people have to shop at a store once to know if they like the place, and I'm certain you've never shopped here before, so what made you want to? The blonde smiled, seeing the rather large man and hearing the way he talked to him, and he knew that he wasn't like the rest of the village. There was no malice in his voice. Well, that's actually quite simple. Oshiro-san, my Ka-san trusted your work and I figured why shouldn't I do the same, he said as he approached the counter, taking the scroll out of his pocket as he went. Daichi looked at the boy, blinking. As far as he had known, Minato had chosen an orphan to house the kyuubi, and the boy had never known who his parents were, so this was a confusing statement. Oh, is that a fact? And who was your Ka-san boy? Naruto smiles and unfurled the scroll and touching the seal, looking at the large man. The last owner of this sword, Naruto stated before channeling chakra, opening the seal and bringing the sword out. Daichi's eyes widened, seeing the sword in front of him. He hadn't seen that sword in 12 years. He knew Kushina and Minato very well, and he knew that sword just as well. He had spent so many hours working on it. Shocked, he looked at the sword and then to the boy in front of him, and then it hit him. He was one of the few to know about Minato and Kushina's marriage. There was only 12 or so who actually knew about it. It had been a small event to keep it that way. After all, what would Kumo and Iwa do if they heard the two biggest threats to them got married? that would just be asking for trouble. And now here was this boy, in front of him claiming Kushina was his Ka-san, and looking like a mini Minato, with whiskers, he had to be sure. He looked to the Hokage for confirmation to get a sad nod, making the man's eyes widen more as he looked back to the boy in front of him. Well, I'll be damned, Minato, you sly dog, he said before bursting into a hearty laugh. He pulled one over on the whole village from beyond the grave. I swear I did not see that one coming. Uzumaki-san, your parents were my best friends back in the academy. You are always welcome in my store, he said with a big smile. Naruto grinned back at him. Thank you, Oshiro-san. Daichi waved his hand in front of him, gesturing no. Enough of the formalities. Call me Daichi. The son of my best friend has that right. Naruto nodded. Daichi ran his hand over the blade and smiled. The red maelstrom. That's what your Ka-san named her blade. It was the last blade to be made from Uzu. They had this technique in forging their metals that made them stronger than most, and when Uzumaki chakra runs through it, that is where it really shines. Have you held it yet? Naruto shook his head. No, I was waiting until it was repaired, and that's why I'm here. My two-san said in his letter to me that you were the only one my Ka-san trusted to work on her blade. That I was, he said as he lifted the broken katana up, looking at the break. It's repairable, but it's going to take a few weeks. Uzumaki blades takes months to form. The metal is steeped in pure Uzumaki chakra. You two-san came up with a way to repair the blade using seals replicating the Uzumaki chakra for just the purpose. I'll pull them out and start working on it tonight. He then turned the handle towards Naruto. Here, channel your chakra through the blade and see what made Uzumaki steel so special. Naruto took the blade in his hand and focused channeling his chakra through the blade as told. He opened his eyes to see the metal was actually glowing red with his chakra in it. Cool. Very. Uzumaki blades are meant to only be wielded by an Uzumaki. Now that you've wielded it, it's bound to you. It won't let anyone but you or those you allow to wield it. Should they try, the blade will increase in weight, making it impossible to lift, along with giving the fool who tried to wield it nasty chakra burns. So Naruto-san, will Konoha be getting a new red death in the future, or rather yellow death? Naruto looked confused for a second until the Hokage spoke up. That was your Ka-san other nickname given during the war. She was known as the Red Death because of her swordsmanship and her red hair. That and the trail of bodies she left between here and Kumo. The woman was a master with a blade with no equal, Daichi said with a smirk. Anko whistled. The more I hear about your Ka-sama Naruto-kun, the more I'm starting to like her more and more. She sounds like she was a total bad. Naruto grinned. Yay, and yes, hopefully in the future it will. I'm planning to learn my Ka-san's kenjutsu, and take after my two-san in Fuinjutsu. I plan on making them both proud. That brought a smile to the Hokage's face. You already have Naruto-kun more than you know. Daichi nodded. Well, now that that's out of the way, let's get you kitted out. Any specific style you're looking for? Naruto smiled. Yay, I've got a few idea. Time skip. After about 3 hours of pulling clothes, with Anko adding her own commentary and saying he should add a trench coat to it all, Naruto finally had his outfit. Steel-toes shinobi boots, black, with chakra metal caps for extra strength and durability. Black Anbu combat trousers, made of a thick and durable fabric, with pockets on both the shins and thighs for kunai and other equipment. A black mesh shirt with red rims around the arms, neck, and waist, with red chakra bandages around his midsection. Black fingerless Anbu gloves with metal backplates, and taking Anko's advice, a black shinobi trench coat with chakra metal shoulder pads, and on the back had the kanji for Ninth Demon Diju Gui down the back in deep red, with the Uzumaki clan mark right above it. When the Hokage asked him why he had that put on it, Naruto simply shrugged, saying, "That's what the rest of the village see me as, may as well tell them if they try anything now, they're screwed." Anko chuckled, with a rather sadistic grin. I like it. Daichi nodded. Your two-san designed some seals that will make that coat last you. I already took the liberty of applying them to the one you're wearing and to the two others in your order. They're for durability and fit. They make the coat grow with your body. Should you suddenly take a growth spurt, the coat will grow with you. How do you think some of the Akamichi use their expansion jutsu without tearing their clothes off them? Your two-san designed it for them. Before that they had to always wear chakra cloth to allow it to grow with them, but your two-san fixed all that, and with the durability seal it's as though it's high-grade body armor. It won't burn or rip without some major firepower behind the attack, so unless you're fighting a cage-level shinobi I don't think you'll be needing any more soon. Naruto grinned. Thanks. Oh, and do you sell training weapons here? Daichi nodded. Yes we do. What were you looking for? A bakken for training while your Ka-san's blade is in for repair. Naruto nodded. Yay, and about 300 of them if you don't mind. Daichi and the Hokage blinked. Why so many, Naruto-san? Are you worried about the quality? Yes Naruto-kun, you could just buy maybe 3 now, and if you need more in a few years come back, reasoned Hiruzen. Naruto shook his head. No, I'm not worried about the quality, Daichi-san, and I don't think 3 would do with the way I plan on training Gigi. If what my Ka-san wrote down on the Kage Bunshin scroll is correct, I should be able to use them to get the stances down on the Kenjutsu style with them and then put them to work sparring after in order to train, and I'd still get the experience and muscle memory. The Hokage nodded. I see. Just be careful with that, Naruto. You could damage your mind creating so many clones like that. The influx of memories could hurt. Dispel them in groups of about 10 or so when you do use that method so as not to hurt yourself. Naruto nodded, and looked to Daichi. Very well Naruto-san, I will go and get your bakkens. I'll have them in a storage scroll at the front counter with the rest of your order. Anything else? Naruto nodded. Yes, about 5,000 kunai, shuriken and senbon needles, 20 large scrolls of seal paper, 500 liters of ink, and 500 fuinjutsu brushes and ink jars. Handwriting and throwing are also about muscle memory. I'm going to be blitzing my training when I get home. I want to get through as much as I can before I start the academy in 3 weeks. Daichi nodded again. All right then, I'll have the supplies in scrolls by the front desk, before turning and leaving to the back. Hiruzen nodded, hearing Naruto's plans. Naruto-kun, if you want I could, after our meeting, write you up a training schedule to help you train for the next few weeks. I'd also recommend you send some clones to the library to read up on survival guides to pick up other skills like hunting and fishing, and reading up on history, law, politics, and other villages might help also. We could factor all that in also if you'd like. I could also assign you a Kenjutsu instructor to help you with your stances and assess your skills as you progress. I think I have a pair in mind just for that job. Naruto smirked. That would be great, Gigi. I can use all the help I can get, though the librarian doesn't like me, much like the rest of the village. Naruto finished rolling his eyes. The Hokage waved him off. No need to worry about it, Naruto-kun, I'll see to it that you can come and go as you please, Hiruzen said as they walked to the counter again. Daichi came out of the back with a number of ladled scrolls. Here's everything, Naruto-san. I even threw in about 50 practice dummies into another scroll for practicing on free of charge for the amount you've just bought, he smiled. Naruto grinned. Thanks, I'll definitely be making use out of them. So how much does all of that come to? The 5 sets of outfits come to 35,000 a set. The 3 coats with seals 5,000 a piece, the 300 bakkens at 500 per, the shuriken at 150 per, kunai at 175 per and senbon at 125 per, then the large scrolls of sealing paper at 15,000 a piece and then the ink at 2,000 a liter, then the brushes and jars is 100 per set, brings the total to 3,040,000 ryo yen, Daichi said, running up the numbers. Chapter 3. Naruto stretched out his arms in his nice new bed, as the sun came in through the cracks in the bamboo Venetian blinds in Naruto's newly furnished bedroom. He had had it fully kitted out that day 3 weeks ago. He had a queen-size bed installed along with silk sheets and a fully wood frame with no footing, a shag rug over the solid wood flooring, 2 large wardrobes, one for shinobi clothing and the other for civilian. He stretched out his arms happily, feeling the weight on his chest. He looked to the still sleeping Anko, who was in a pair of purple silk pajamas. She had started sneaking over in the middle of the night 2 weeks ago, and after the first night, she had said she couldn't sleep without her cuddly Foxy-kun, which she had now made his nickname, whereas his for her was Hubby Hemi, after seeing her snakes for the first time when they trained. The first night she had snuck in, she had slept in just her panties. This nearly made Naruto pass out from blood loss the morning he woke up. From then on he had insisted until they were both out of the academy she wear pajamas. They were still too young for things like that. She was going to disagree, but Yugao put her foot down and agreed with Naruto, saying it's either that or no, Foxy-kun. Anko had agreed after that, knowing full well her sister can be just as scary and sadistic as her when she wants to be, and she paid the rent. She could always live with Naruto, but then it would have been his house and his rules, so she would have had to either way. Naruto smiled seeing her sleeping peacefully, but then he looked at the alarm clock, seeing it was 8 and the academy started at 10. So he decided to wake her up. Over the past 3 weeks, the two of them had gotten closer, and were officially a couple, though their dinner dates were either they ate in, or eat at either the Dango shop or Ichiraku's ramen. As no other restaurant would serve the kyuubi brat and the snake whore, but their first date had actually gone better than expected, and even more so that both the stores were across the street from one another. Flashback. Naruto sat down with Anko at Ichiraku's with a smile. "Hey Tsukioji, how's you?" Naruto greeted the ramen chef as he came out of the back. He wore an all-white chef's outfit with a small hat on his head with the kanji for ramen on it. Tsuki smiled seeing Naruto. "On Naruto-kun, I'm fine, haven't seen you in the past few days. Have you been busy?" Naruto nodded. "Yay, moving into a new apartment and starting a training schedule before I start the academy in a few weeks' time. Things have been busy, to say the least. Hey, I'd like you to meet my friend Anko-chan," Naruto said, introducing Anko. Tsuki nodded to Anko with a smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Anko-chan, and it's nice to see Naruto-kun is making some friends." "It's nice to meet you to Tsuki-san. Naruto-kun here had mentions your ramen is an, I quote, food of the gods, but I'm still skeptical," Anko greeted with a smirk. Tsuki smirked. "Oh, so it's Naruto-kun, is it? Well, this is interesting. Naruto, just wait until Ayame-chan gets an earful of that. You're in for a load of teasing, you two. So you two dating yet?" Both Anko and Naruto blushed red, and Naruto started to stutter. Actually Tsukioji, this kind of is our first one, we're taking it slow." Tsuki smiled at the blonde. "I understand that, Naruto. I'll tell Ayame-chan to keep it to a minimal. So what's this I hear about you doubting my ramen's reputation, Anko-chan?" "Well, it's just that, it's impossible for two foods to be the food of the gods," she said with a grin. Tsuki crossed his arms. "Is that so? Then do tell. What is it you believe can beat my ramen?" Anko grinned. "The food that tops all other, dango." Tsuki looked to Naruto. "You brought a ramen virgin into my restaurant, didn't you?" Naruto nodded sadly. "I've been trying to make her see the light for the past 2 days, but I can't get through to her. Please help me, oh ramen sanin." Tsuki nodded. "Do not worry, my child. We shall show her the way of the righteous dish that is ramen. 3 Naruto specials coming up," the proud chef said as he went into the back, only to emerge moments later with the 3 bowls, setting them down. Both Naruto and Tsuki bowed to the bowls in respect. "All praise the ramen kami-sama for what you are about to receive, for it is through him that we spread the word of the righteous ramen through the world so that even more may enjoy its righteous ways. Amen." Anko just sweat dropped hearing the two of them, but thought in her head, how did they know the sacred prayer of the Dango Kami-sama? The 3 of them took up their chopsticks and started to eat. Upon first taste, Anko's eyes turned into stars, making both Tsuki and Naruto smirk, but said nothing and kept eating until all 3 bowls were empty. Anko fell back, stars still in her eyes, making Naruto and Tsuki shake their heads. "The first bowl is always the best. and the Naruto special has been perfected over 6 long years of trial and error until the kami-sama of all ramen dishes had been perfected. It is the signature dish of this establishment. If it cannot turn a ramen virgin into a ramen lover, then nothing can, and they are forever lost to the way of the ramen. Tyuki said, speaking in a tone sounding so much like a wise sage who has spent decades honing his mind, instead of honing his ramen, which are but one in the same. After several moments, Anko stood up, still rather shaky on her feet. After sitting back on the stool and sipped a glass of water, she nodded slowly. That was something else, incredible, but there is only one way to be sure. I propose another taste test. Tyuki and Naruto shared a look and nodded. Naruto spoke. Very well, Anko-chan, we shall allow you your taste test on this sacred ground of the ramen kami-sama, and we shall see once and for all whose is the kami-sama of foods. Anko slowly stumbled out the ramen bar and over across the street into the dango store just across the way. After a few more moments, she emerged carrying 4 boxes as she carried them with great care. Behind her came a man wearing a similar outfit to Tyuki, except it had the kanji for dango on it. Entering the store, both men stared off. So Tyuki, seems you have been trying to convert one who is loyal to the joyous way of the dango, and turn her to the way of your slop, though she is of strong enough mind and faith to resist your temptations and submit, the new chef spoke with a smirk. So you think your dango can outdo that of the ramen kami, do you, Teruya? Well, we shall see. Naruto here is one of the most faithful in the ways of the ramen, and so he will prove you wrong, as will I, Tyuki challenged. Both men started glaring at each other as sparks started to fly and both teenagers' sweat dropped looking at the grown men acting like children. After a few moments they all took a seat with the dango in front of them. Both Anko and Teruya put their hands together and bowed. All praise the dango kami-sama for what you are about to receive, for it is through his grace that we spread the word of the joyous dango through the world so that even more may enjoy its joyous light. Amen. Both Tyuki and Naruto blinked. It's the ramen prayer to the ramen kami-sama. What could this mean? All 4 of them lifted up their first dango sticks, and took the first dango, and just as Anko before him, Naruto's eyes lit up. After swallowing the first bite, Naruto set the stick down, his body shaking. Both he and Tyuki share a look, the look of realization. They have found the Naruto's special final ingredient. Getting up, Tyuki moves to the back. Teruya smirking. What's wrong? Can't handle the joyous experience that is my dango. Anko looks to Naruto, who is still shaking. She smirked, remembering her first bite. It was joy on a stick. Moments later, Tyuki comes out of the back with 4 bowls of Naruto ramen, setting them down. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but for the past 3 years after perfecting the masterpiece that is the Naruto special, I believe your dango might actually be the missing taste. This bowl covers every taste but that. The ramen in this bowl is an explosion of righteous flavors and textures, but your dango is what it needs. Teruya looked at his counterpart chef and saw no deception. There was only one thing for it. Let us see then. Everyone took a separate bowl and pushed a dango dumpling to the top of their sticks before dipping it into the juice of the ramen. Lifting it out, all 4 looked at the dango in front of them before putting it into their mouths. The result was all 4 passing out from their taste buds, overloading and frying their brains as steam shot out their ears in the shape of dango and ramen. That night ramen and dango met. It was a righteous and joyous day for the 4 of them. The world would never be the same. Flashback end. The past 3 weeks had honestly been the happiest 3 weeks of Naruto's life. He had a girlfriend, he was starting the academy, he found out who his parents were, he had a new apartment, and his training couldn't be going better. That night 3 weeks back, he and the old Hokage had put together a solid training regimen for Naruto, which has only improved over the 3 weeks. As he grows stronger and more training is needed. He even had Yugao and Hayate as instructors. They helped him to get a better grasp of his chakra control, ninjutsu and kenjutsu. 7:30 Wake up, shower, get dressed, eat a big breakfast. 9 o'clock head to reserved training ground to meet Yugao sensei and Hayate sensei. 9:15 distribute 600 clones. 200 chakra control, 100 tree climbing and 100 leaf exercise. 50 ninjutsu basic 3, 25 henge, 25 substitution, 0 clone not needed. 100 on advanced ninjutsu, 50 shunshin, 25 cage shuriken and 25 cage kunai. Reinforced 40 kenjutsu, taijutsu 20 stances and 20 sparring. 100 on fuinjutsu practice. 20 library to read up on new topics. 90 on shuriken, senbon, kunai target practice. 930 to 1300 warm-up period 5 laps of the village, 200 push-ups, 200 leg-ups, 200 squats, 200 kicks both feet, 200 punches both hands. 1300 to 1415 lunch. 1415 to 1600 kenjutsu, taijutsu sparring with Hayate sensei, physical training. 1600 to 1745 kenjutsu, taijutsu sparring with yugao sensei, physical training. 1745 to 1930 dinner. 1930 to 2030 dispel chakra clones in batches of 10 every few minutes. 2030 to 2115 dispel ninjutsu clones in batches of 10 every few minutes. 2115 to 2230 dispel rest of clones every few minutes. 2230 to 2300 rest and get ready for bed. In that 20-day period, Naruto and Anko had trained each for 210 hours roughly, though in actual spec with Naruto's 600 clones a day had put in 42,000 hours of chakra control practice. He could now balance a leaf on his forehead and up to 1 meter off it for up to 3 hours. He had mastered the tree climbing exercise. He could stand upside down on the bottom of a tree branch for 5 hours. On the third week, he had begun water walking and even managed to last up to an hour on top of the water. 5,250 hours into each of the ninjutsu basics of henjin substitution. He could now substitute without the use of a hand sign, and perform a flawless henge, although, due to the kyuubi chakra it was discovered that Naruto henge isn't an illusions but it had an actual solid forms. After the Hokage was informed about it, he dubbed the new jutsu the perfect henge and listed it as a B-class ninjutsu. 10,500 hours on shunshin and another 5,250 hours into both cage shuriken and cage kunai, resulting in Naruto being able to shunshin 50 yards in a second. He could keep up with low jonin speeds with that level of skill, and with both cage techniques, Naruto had mastered them to an extent of only needing one hand sign. The clones practiced kenjutsu and taijutsu for 4,002 hours each, and he himself had put in 35 hours each practice. He now had the stances of his Ka-san's kenjutsu stances learned perfectly and the academy basic taijutsu down so well. The Hokage had given him the scroll to his clan's taijutsu style known as the swirling waves. He had been studying it for the past week but still wasn't confident enough in it to use it yet. He had put 21,000 hours into his fuinjutsu, at which he had breezed through the first book, after spending the first 3 days, 3,150 hours, with his clones making his handwriting perfect, which is required for any sealing master. Then the next 5 days they had spent working on the seals the first book showed until they had the skill to create them in under 30 seconds. As a result, before he moved on to the next book, and then the next book, within the 3 weeks, 20 days, he had cleared the 3 beginners' books of fuinjutsu and was able to make each seal in 30 seconds solid. As a result, he had amassed quite the stockpile of seals due to that fact, though they were only the basics. Book 1. Beginner 1. Covered the history of fuinjutsu and Fuinjutsu 101 the facts. It then taught how to make storage seals for scrolls small and medium sizes, smoke seals for small smoke bombs and distraction level explosive tags, and taught Naruto how to make his own chakra ink for his seals. Book 2. Beginner 2. Taught how to make large storage seals, medium smoke seals and medium strength explosive tags, how to make small chakra storage seals, and then how to merge 2 seals together like the smoke and explosive to do both tasks. After completing that book in the week, the Hokage had shown the boy how to create privacy seals which were used around his office. he also showed him how to create sound restriction seals that are applied to shinobi when they need to be quiet and can be controlled by a simple hand sign and only requires paper tags. Book 3. Beginner. 3. Taught the final in smoke seals large and extra large. Then explosive tags large, and chakra storage seals medium, and started on chakra type storage seals small for different natures of chakra. And then learning how to merge 3 seals into one. Like 3 large explosive tags make for one big boom. But the Hokage had informed him that anything over medium was not allowed for use in the village. And he must have written permission as is the law, so he sent his clones out of the village for a test run, and he was right, it made for one big boom, and he now knew what it was like to be blown up from 5 different perspectives without actually being there. Realizing the boy needed to keep his home and work secure, the Hokage taught the boy how to create blood lock seals, meaning they needed a blood smear to gain access to what the lock was on. But the kicker to getting the last beginner's book was it came with instructions on how to apply restriction and weight seals, which he learned how to do after he requested the Hokage to apply them to him for his 3rd week of training. He now had 50 pounds on each limb, and another 100 pounds on his chest with a level 2 restriction seal on his back, which he released every 2 days for an hour to get used to the feeling. In the beginning, it was 20 pounds on each limb and 40 pounds on the chest at level 1, but in that week his body had adjusted in 3 days and he added to them, now carrying 300 pounds, and with the increase of a level 2 restriction seal on his chest, which gives the feeling of pushing through heavy water, helping his muscles to grow more. As for the rest of his skills, he now was able to hit a moving target at 50 yards 7 out of 10 times, preferring Senbon to anything else, after putting in 18,900 hours target practice with his clones. The clones he had sent to the library every day had direct orders to stop reading at 2100 hours and return to the apartment before dispelling. The last thing they needed was the librarian complaining about the demon brat using jutsu in the library. She had already been ordered not to complain by the Hokage, but 20 clones all going poof would just piss her off. In the 20 days each clone had read a book a day, meaning in 20 days he had read over 400 books. And had built up quite the mass of knowledge from reading them, from everything from battle tactics, to history of the elemental nations and the shinobi wars, to learning the basics of how to hunt and fish and live in the wilderness, and also how to grow his own fruit and vegetables, learning the natural geography of the land of fire, and then, as the Hokage suggested, learn of the politics and laws of the village, and how to get around them. After finishing those books in the first 2 weeks, he then started to read books on more standard skillsets like carpentry, plumbing, electric wiring, carpet fitting, boiler repair, roofing, cleaning, general handyman things, and then how to manage a business and all the necessary books on running a hotel or apartment lot. He had decided while he was either at the academy or training he would be having his clones fix up his old apartment building, completely renovate it, and before renting the rooms for either nights or long-term leases, he needed to find some way to keep money flowing. He may have been filthy rich, but he wanted a business, and he didn't want to just skate by on his clan's money like the Uchiha boy, who had everything laid at his feet. He swore he wouldn't be like that. 2 days left in his training, he had started to learn the first of his clan's jutsu. He had decided to go with the fire-style jutsu, as he wanted something with a little kick to it. Neither Yugao sensei or Hayate sensei had enough chakra to do it, and their attempts could only produce a smaller version of the attack, but when Naruto did it, the attack was ferocious. The technique was called Uzumaki Kaiden, Kasai Hakushu, Uzumaki Fire Release, Fire Clap. Building up mass amounts of fire chakra into your hands and then bringing them together in a clap, causing a fiery explosion in front of the user like a Merlin 1D rocket engine that burned for over 20 seconds. The result was so great it incinerated a 30-meter long 4-5 degree arc in front of Naruto. Lucky the Hokage had wanted to witness the jutsu's first attempt, so he set up a barrier around the training field in case something should go wrong. After the jutsu's first attempt, Naruto's hands had third-degree burns from not using enough chakra for protection from the fire, but the kyuubi's chakra had healed him 5 minutes later. After seeing the technique's strength currently, the Hokage listed it as an A+ rank jutsu and forbid Naruto from using it in any other Uzumaki jutsu in any fight until he became a genin, and to use only 5% of the chakra he just used if he was fighting a shinobi from this village in a spar. Naruto understood why if the other 4 jutsu were as strong as this he would kill any opponent that was hit by the full force of the attack. But now today was the first day in the academy. He had heard from the Hokage that he was in a good year with all the clans having children attending the same year as him, so he would have multiple strong peers to learn beside. Along with some promising civilian students. Which he was happy about. But what was really shocking that just the other night, the night before his last day of training he had found himself in his mindscape. First he had thought it a dream, but he quickly realized it wasn't. Flashback. Naruto awoke in a sewer. Looking around he saw he was lying on a thin coating of water. Not wanting to get wet he stood up and looked around, but as he did he heard a sound coming from not too far off. He sharpened his senses and could make out that of someone crying. Following the sound, he came to a large cage with a paper tag over the lock with the kanji for seal on it. Realizing where he was, he walked up to the cage where he heard the sound coming from. He looked inside, still cautious about what might be inside, expecting a massive claw to swipe at him any moment. He was shocked when he saw no massive fox inside, but a small form of someone inside curled up into a ball crying, muttering, I'm sorry, over and over again. Walking into the cage, still cautious, he approached the figure shocked to see it was a girl with long crimson hair down to the base of her back, about his age. She wore filthy rags over her that looked like they had once been beautiful clothes, long since destroyed and faded by time. Hearing his footsteps, the girl looked up at him. He saw her deep red eyes that were puffy with tears. Seeing him, she gasped before quickly bowing on her hands and knees to him, screaming out loud, I'm sorry. It's all my fault, please forgive me, I never wanted this for anyone. And then proceeding to cry, I'm sorry, over and over again, making Naruto's eyes widen. What is she talking about? What is going on? Wait a minute, we're in the cage, in me, the only other thing that's meant to be in here is the kyuubi, Naruto said, softly before he took a step back from her. You're the kyuubi no kitsune, aren't you? The girl continued to cry but nodded, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Looking at the girl, Naruto grew more confused. The kyuubi no kitsune was meant to be a massive beast of destruction and devastation that was meant to make mountains topple with a single tail, and create lakes with a footstep. Yet here was this girl that couldn't even be older than him, crying and begging for his forgiveness. None of this made sense. The girl in front of him was crying still, but swallowing his fear he walked towards the girl and knelt down to her. Please don't cry, he said softly as he put his hand on her shoulder, making her flinch from the contact. You're the kyuubi, aren't you? The girl's nodded head still bowed, but Naruto shook his head, putting his hand under her chin and bringing her up to meet his eye. Please talk to me, you're the kyuubi, aren't you? She nodded. Again, hi, Naruto-sama, I am. Bringing up another question with the sama honorific, why do you call me sama, and why are you crying? She looked away from him before answering, I'm the reason your life is like it was and still is, I'm the reason the villagers hate you. I'm the reason you were beaten multiple times a week, and the reason your parents are dead. I've ruined the life of someone so innocent that didn't deserve it. It should be me they glare at, me they beat. I should be the one to suffer, not you. Naruto was taken back by the whole statement. This can't be the kyuubi. This isn't right. How can you be the same kyuubi that attacked the village so mercilessly 12 years ago, that took the lives of over a third of the village? How is any of this happening? It's all my fault, for not resisting the extraction and genjutsu more. It's all my fault that this happened, the girl said painfully. Hearing that, Naruto's eyes widened. Extraction, genjutsu, what? The kyuubi started to cry. I was ripped from your ka-san by the man in the mask and placed under a genjutsu the night of your birth. the one in the mask ordered me to attack your village. I tried to resist but it didn't work, and I just kept on attacking. Even after the man's control fell, I was still trapped until your two sands sealed me. I would never have attacked otherwise. As foxes are pranksters and jokers, we hate violence unless it is to protect our own. We would never attack anyone. Naruto's legs gave way beneath him halfway through the conversation. The man in the mask, he was behind it all. His parents and Gigi's wife's deaths, the whole kyuubi attack, it was him behind it all. He was the reason he was hated, he was the reason for his pain, it was all him. Snapping back to the scene in front of him, the girl, Kyuubi, was crying again. Naruto realized none of this was her fault, and quickly embraced the poor crying girl in a hug, making her immediately stop crying. It's okay, it's alright. None of his is your fault, he said softly to her. The Kyuubi's eyes widened hearing that. How could he have forgiven her so quickly? All the pain he's endured because of her. Why? How? It didn't make sense to her. Why? She said softly just enough for him to hear, but before he could respond she pushed him away to arm's length. Why can you forgive me so easily? I'm the reason for all your suffering and pain. I'm the reason behind it all. You should hate me, you should. Slap. The sound echoed in the cage. The girl felt a burning sensation on her cheek. He had slapped her, he had just slapped the kyuubi no kitsune, and now everyone in the audience is thinking, damn dude's got some balls on him. She looked back at him to see his face filled with rage, his eyes red and slits, as he glared at her. The first thing that ran through her mind that it had all been an act and now he was going to take his revenge on her over and over again and again, and she would accept it. But that was why the next words that came out of his mouth were so shocking. No, you're not. That bastard in the mask is. He's the one who has done all of this. It's his fault, not yours. You're just a victim like me, like the rest of the village, it's all his fault. Naruto yelled. Hearing him yell, she just couldn't help but break down in tears once more. She lunged for him, hugging him, crying into his shoulder thank you over and over again, bawling like a little girl. Blinking, his eyes faded back to their usual blue, and after a few moments Naruto slowly lowered himself to the ground as her legs gave way and they both sat down, her still hugging and crying into him. He let her cry it out. After a few minutes she finally stopped crying and was just hugging him, but she was now asleep. They just lay there. He wasn't sure what to do or say. He had a girl, who was the kyuubi, on his chest. What would you do? But he soon felt the tug of morning coming on his body and he was going to be waking soon, so gently shaking her to wake her up she stirred. Hey, wake up, I need to go. Blinking awake she opened her eyes and saw Naruto. She nodded, getting up. Hi, Naruto-sama. He shook his head. You don't have to call me that. You know I don't blame you for my life, so just call me what you want. Hi, Naruto-sama, she said again, making him sigh. Anything other than that? Hey, speaking of names, what do I call you anyway? I highly doubt a being that's been around for centuries has gone without a name, and I doubt it's kyuubi no kitsune, Naruto asked with a smirk. Slowly she nodded. Hi, my name is Akane, Naruto-sama. Naruto shook his head with a slight smile. Very well then, Akane-chan, he said, making her blush at the affectionate suffix. I've got to be going now, so I guess I'll see you in my next dream. Akane stepped forward. Actually, Naruto-sama, if you want to see me, all you have to do is meditate. It will bring you here so we can talk. Or you can rip the bottom corner of the tag over the lock and we can converse mentally anytime. You can of course close the link anytime. Naruto nodded. Thanks, I'll do that on the way out, he said before looking around. Has this place always been such a dump? Akane nodded her head. All the beatings you took made it this way. A dark outlook makes for a dark mind. Naruto frowned. Well, I'll fix that for you on my next visit, but now I can feel Anko-chan starting to wake me up, so I've got to go, he said, walking towards the cage and jumping up, ripping the bottom corner of the tag off just before he disappeared. Slowly Naruto put his hand on Anko's shoulder and shook her. Come on hubby Haim, it's time to get up to get ready for the academy. Anko's face scrunched up as she buried her face into Naruto's hard chest, mumbling, I don't want to. Naruto smirked at his girlfriend's antics, as he ran his hand through her hair. Come on hubby Haim, it will be fun, we get to destroy some gakis, he said in a sing-song voice, that sent a shiver down Anko's spine in a good way. She looked up into his blue eyes. Can I feed them to my snakes? She asked, licking her lips. Naruto shook his head. Sadly no Haim, but you can threaten them with that and watch as they piss themselves in fear, and I suppose a little scratch or two to put the fear in them wouldn't hurt. Anko pouted hearing that she couldn't feed her snakes the gakis, but smiled thinking she could at least have a little fun, that her boyfriend would let her. She was normally the dominant type and she was with most other people, but over the past 3 weeks she had found herself rather submissive to Naruto. She didn't mind. He still let her have plenty of fun, and their little session last week when she let him be dominant was very enjoyable. They didn't go all the way only groping through clothes, but he was good, so she would gladly submit to him for the pleasure. But there was another thing. She was honestly a little scared of Naruto's strength and skill. The Hokage said that if it wasn't due to the laws he had set about the age of becoming a shinobi, he would have already made Naruto a genin. But the law stated he had to pass the academy test after 4 years and be 16. That and the fact that the ever so honorable civilian council would never allow the demon brat to become a genin like that. They didn't have any say in the matter, but they would throw a major fit about it and bury the old man in mountains of paperwork that not even Kage Bunshin could get him out of. He really couldn't be hassled with that, and he wanted his grandson to enjoy his childhood for a bit longer yet. Anko could understand the man's reasoning, but it still didn't change the fact that Naruto had more skill than anyone in the academy and he hadn't even attended day 1 yet. Anko sighed. Fine, I guess that will do, she said before pulling herself up and giving her boyfriend a chastity kiss on the lips. I'll take the shower first, you get started on breakfast. Naruto nodded at his girlfriend as they got up, walking past each other. Anko reached for Naruto and gave his backside a squeeze. I'm so glad I saved that work of art. Naruto shook his head and before she was out of arm's reach he gave her backside a little slap, making her jump. Careful Haim, two can play that game. He chuckled, leaving Anko blushing like mad. He had beat her in teasing again, and that was just one of the reasons she loved him. Scene break. Naruto stood in front of the mirror in his bedroom finishing applying the last of his outfit on him. He grinned looking in the mirror. Well Akane-chan, what do you think? Naruto asked aloud with a smirk. Akane blushed in Naruto's mind looking through his eyes. Very nice Naruto-sama, I'm sure you'll have a great first day. She said aloud through the seal, which had been part of what changed when Naruto had torn the seal when he came out the first time, allowing her to speak through the seal. Naruto grinned, only to feel 2 arms snake around his midsection, before he heard a voice behind him. The redhead's right, very nice indeed, and you're all mine. Anko smirked, hugging Naruto's back. As she said that, Naruto could mentally feel Akane frown slightly in his mindscape but brushed it off as nothing as he turned to see Anko wearing the outfit she had chosen a week back. When Naruto had gone to pick up his Ka-san's katana, he had bought it for her, saying she looked great in it. He was right. She wore a fitted mesh bodysuit that stretches from her neck down to her thighs, but with dark orange wrappings around her bust, saying she may want to look good but that area was for Foxy-kun only. A dark orange mini skirt, a dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. She had her own version of Naruto's trench coat, only it was tan not black but had the same seals, and adorned as always was the snake fang pendant around her neck. Naruto had asked about it and she had said it was the only thing her old sensei ever gave her, and it served as a reminder of a promise that she would kill her former sensei for betraying her and branding her with this curse mark. Naruto had seen the curse mark the second week, and had said that he wouldn't rest until he found a way to remove it. He asked her to be patient, that he would find a way, and she held him to it, knowing he never went back on his word. You look beautiful my Haim. Naruto said, kissing her lips, gently wrapping his arms around her waist and holding her gently, making her smirk. You ready for today, Naru-kun? Anko asked with a smirk on her lips. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I'm ready. I've been looking forward to this day for the past 3 weeks. I know I'm more than strong enough. This academy is going to be a walk in the park for me. The only hard part will be having to spend time away from you, Harem, he said as he pulled their embrace into a hug. Anko smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. I know, Naru-kun, I know, but we can make up for it after class. Remember, Yugao Ne-sensei said we have Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays off physical training, so we can have some fun and enjoy our youth, as Hokage Gigi says. In the past 3 weeks, Anko had been training alongside Naruto. When Naruto wasn't training with one of their senseis, she even joined the clones in for target and jutsu practice, seeing as she could only make a maximum of 2 clones before being completely drained. She couldn't use it to train as Naruto could, which she was disappointed in but didn't let it get to her. Over those 3 weeks with the Hokage's regular visits, she had become somewhat of a granddaughter to him, like Naruto was a grandson, even going so far as to call him Gigi, which made the old man smile at the fact. Anko had been lucky enough that her ex-sensei had been in such a rush to get out of the village, that he had left copies of his snake jutsu scrolls behind, which the Sandaime had found and had decided to give them to Anko as she was the only snake user left in the village. She hadn't been thrilled about learning the bastard's techniques, but she decided to make use of them, seeing as she was a snake user. Breaking off from the hug, the two of them shared a brief kiss before walking for the door, Naruto picking up his black bakken as he walked. It had been one that he had had custom made by Daichi. The whole thing was made from chakra metal. It was blunt, but when Naruto channeled his chakra into it, it would cut as good as a katana would. After Naruto had it made, the Hokage had taken the liberty to applying 3 seals to it. All of which Naruto recognized. There was a storage seal on the hilt holding 50 kunai for quick access. The second one Naruto only partially recognized because he had started to learn the weaker version of it. It was a strengthening and reinforcement seal that provided SS plus rank protection, meaning that it would be strong enough to take a hell of a lot of damage and still not even chip. He was learning the weaker C rank version of the seal, but the base array was the same. That is why he recognized it. The third seal activated the second Naruto lifted it. It was a resistance seal, making the blade heavier in Naruto's hands but not physically heavier. Meaning it took more effort to lift and swing, but it helped him develop the proper muscles for when he wielded a blade without the seals. The bakken also had a protection seal on it which gave anyone a nasty chakra burn should they touch it without Naruto saying so. The restriction and protection seals were linked to a mental control seal placed behind Naruto's right ear, so he can control them at any time. Taking the bakken, he slotted it into the loop on the side of his Anbu trousers as they walked out of the apartment. The Hokage had asked him not to use his Ka-san's blade in public, as it would cause them both a headache should anyone recognize it. That's why he had the bakken made. Naruto locked the door and activated the blood seal before wrapping his arm around Anko's waist, and then both of them disappeared into a red and purple leaf shunshin. Scene break. Naruto walked up to the classroom door he had been assigned to, having already parted with Anko at the main desk for her to go to her 3rd-year class. He knew they couldn't be in the same class, even though his skill was enough to have him advance years ahead of his age group. But again, the council would go against it, and Gigi still wanted him to have as much of a childhood as possible, so he would just have to make do. Opening the door, he went into the classroom. The room was a standard square room with 3 rows of seats wide, climbing at a vertical angle up the back of the room. There were others his age in the room already seated and others standing around talking. Naruto didn't really recognize any of them except for 1 or 2. Kiba Inuzuka. His attire consisted of dark grayish pants reaching to his calves and a gray, hooded fur-lined coat, with the hood placed on his head, over an apparent plate of armor and fishnet undershirt, with his nin hound Akamaru on his head under the hood. Akamaru was a small white pup, with brown ears, no bigger than a cat, but he would grow to be the size of a small horse from what Naruto had seen. The two of them knew each other from a week back when Hana, Kiba's older sister, had come looking for Yugao, having not seen her best friend in 2 weeks. When Yugao had told Hana that she was training Naruto under orders of the Hokage, Hana had suggested that they take the training to the Inuzuka compound, that there was plenty of room there while the clone trained here. Needless to say, she had been shocked seeing so many clones but knew the boy was the kyuubi container but didn't hold it against him as like many of her clan. They accepted the invitation and went. There Naruto and Anko met Kiba and his mother Sume Inuzuka. The woman was extremely blunt, just like Hana, but Naruto and Anko liked her. Kiba was at first a thick-headed idiot, but after a spar with Naruto one-on-one, getting his kicked in 30 seconds flat made him change his tune, and Sume, Hana and Anko nearly bust a gut laugh their asses off. Naruto and Kiba had become good friends that day. They had even hung out a few times while Naruto was having lunch. Sume had said Naruto and Anko were always welcome at the Inuzuka compound, that anyone that can kick Kibas like that, are great company. The only other one Naruto recognized was Hinata Hyuga. She had dark blue hair which she had cut in a short, leveled Heim cut style just above her forehead, with chin-length strands framing her face. She wore a cream-colored hooded jacket with a fire symbol on the upper right and left sleeves and fur around the cuffs and hem, with navy blue pants. The only reason he recognized her was from 4 years back when he was little. He had seen her in the local park while she was getting picked on by some local bullies 2 years older than them. He had defended her and ended up getting the crap kicked out of him for it. After beating him, the bullies had just left, not even looking back. Hinata had come over to him and thanked him for helping her, apologizing for not being strong enough to do it herself. He had told her he had had worse beatings. She was confused by that and was about to help him, but then the Hyuga guard had come back from his break and took her away, saying someone of her class shouldn't associate herself with someone like him. Naruto frowned at the memory, realizing now what the man was referring to when he said, someone like him. He had meant the container of the kyuubi. Boy, wouldn't they be surprised to learn the whole thing was controlled from the shadows by someone who had a Sharingan. Yes, that had been the fact Akane had told Naruto during his meeting with the Hokage. He had wanted all the information she could give him on the man, believing her fully about being controlled. She had mentioned how he had cursed Red Eye with 3 tomos in it. The Hokage had recognized the eyes immediately and informed them it was the dojutsu of the Uchiha clan, which had been massacred 6 years earlier by one of its own, leaving only one of them alive, but had put him in a coma that had lasted 3 months. Naruto's eyes scanned the classroom at that thought, and he stopped when he saw who he was looking for, Sasuke Uchiha, the last Uchiha. He had black eyes and spiky black hair with a blue tint. He wore a navy blue, short-sleeved shirt with a high collar, white shorts, and white arm warmers, but none of that caught his eye more than the way his hair was styled. Looking at it from the side looked like a duck had nestled in his hair and had buried its head, leaving only its butt sticking out the back, duck butt. Naruto had to hold in a laugh as he thought about that, but then he noticed something else. About 50% of the girls in the class were looking at Sasuke with hard eyes and the other 50 were looking at him with the same eyes. He had to blink once or twice but then sighed. Great fangirls, thought Naruto as he walked to a seat. Anko-chan is going to love this when she finds out. She may even try to feed them to her snakes. As Naruto sat down, he noticed more than just the girls' eyes on him. He had drawn a few boys' attention also, the Uchiha in particular, as he watched him walk to his seat. Naruto felt his gaze. Well, it was more like a glare. He didn't know what the Uchiha's problem was. He had just walked in. Sure, he felt bad for the guy being in the same boat with no living family, but unlike Naruto, the council, the civilian side at least, worshipped the ground the last Uchiha walked on, giving him everything he wanted. He wanted training, he got it. He wanted jutsu, he got it. He wanted weapons, he got it. He was left wanting for nothing. The Hokage had explained that they did it to keep him happy so he wouldn't leave the village and take his clan dojutsu with him. Some wanted him to marry their daughters so they could have a piece of the large Uchiha fortune. Yes, the old man had explained the Clan Restoration Act to Naruto after he had read about it one of those days his clones were studying the village's laws. It allowed the last member of a clan to take on multiple spouses to restore said clan. It worked well for the last males of the clan, but the females were turned into breeding stock if that was the case. But that was the way of the world they lived in. Naruto had been explained that he would fall under the act as the last member of the Uzumaki clan and that he would have to take on multiple wives when he became a shinobi, 5 at the minimum. Anko had been annoyed at that point and was actually ready to castrate the old man for the fact, but Naruto had calmed her down and told her no matter what he would always love her. She had settled after that, and accepted the way things were, and she was willing to share considering she got a say in who the wives were. Naruto had agreed, knowing that was the only way they would both be happy. Now Naruto sat being eyed like a piece of meat in a lion's den, but the fact he was the last of a clan was still secret. Naruto could only begin to imagine what it would be like when it became public knowledge that he could take on 5+ wives. He would be eaten alive, and not in a fun way. Sighing again, he shook his head just as he heard the door to the classroom opening again. In walked a man of average height and build with brown hair tied back in a ponytail, dark eyes and a scar that ran across the bridge of his nose, wearing the standard Konoha shinobi outfit complete with forehead protector, sandals, and flak jacket. His sleeves were also rolled up about 1/4 the way up his arms. He walked to the front of the room and the other students took that as their hint to take their seats. As they did, the second man walked into the room. He wore the same clothing as the first man, but he had white shoulder-length hair with a slight hint of blue to it and green eyes, with pale perfect skin. Naruto smirked looking at both of them. Well, you can easily tell the one with the scars has had more experience than the one with perfect skin and conditioned silver hair. The one with the scar spoke first. Good morning, welcome to your first day as academy students. My name is Iruka Yumino, and this is my assistant Mizuki. For the next 4 years, we will be your instructors in all things shinobi related. Now, since this is the first day, we will be having a class tournament to set the baseline and class rankings, which will be changing throughout your 4 years here. We will be having a kunai and shuriken throwing tournament at the school range and a taijutsu tournament out on the school practice field. But first we will be going to have a demonstration period, to give some of you the chance to show off a little, but first, roll call. Iruka finished as he lifted the paperboard off his desk as he cleared his throat. Shino Aburame. Present, came a voice over Naruto's shoulder. Naruto casually glanced at the boy. He was fair-skinned from what Naruto could see, that is, he had dark, bushy, brown hair and dark, narrow eyes, wearing a pair of dark sunglasses and a sea green jacket with a high, upturned collar. Naruto knew of the Aburame clan. The clans of Konoha were in some of the books his clones read. The Aburame clan was one of the 4 noble clans of Konohagakure. At birth, members of the clan were offered to several special breeds of insects as a nest, residing just under their host's skin. These insects will then live in symbiosis with their host from that point on. Because of this, its members are characterized by their use of insects as weapons. The whole process seemed rather disturbing to Naruto, but he wasn't one to judge. One other thing to mention, the entire clan barely spoke, though when they did speak they were highly intelligent, often well versed in politics and matters of the like. Iruka gave a nod. Choji Akamichi. Munch here, Munch, came a voice on the other side of Naruto. Doing the same, he glanced to see the source. The source was a plump boy who wore black shorts, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved, green haori, over a light green shirt with the kanji for food, shi, on it, small, hoop earrings, and his legs and forearms were wrapped in bandages. His forehead protector was styled in a manner that allowed 2 tufts of brown hair to poke out at each side. He was also stuffing his face with potato crisps in the middle of class. The Akamichi were one of the other clans of Konoha. Members of the clan possessed great physical strength and were able to quickly convert calories into chakra, which they then use in their various secret techniques. Most of these techniques rapidly consume the user's chakra during use, and maintaining them during a prolonged battle can be tiring. For this reason, the Akamichi have high chakra levels and eat a lot in order to build up or replenish their chakra reserves. One of the key things you should never do is call an Akamichi fat. It will never end well for that person. Uruka sighed, please keep the eating for lunch and break. Sakura Haruno. Present. Came a girl's voice from the far side of the room. Naruto turned his gaze to it for a brief second. It was a girl with bright pink long hair down past her shoulders. She wore a red kipao dress with white circular designs, with short sleeves and zipper, tight dark green bike shorts, standard ninja sandals. Seeing the pink hair and hearing the name Haruno told Naruto all he needed to know. Haruno was a civilian family name, not a shinobi clan, though they have been trying for that status for years. Though to be even considered you have to have a shinobi in the family and they had none, though not from a lack of trying. Mebuki Haruno, Sakura's mother, was on the civilian council, and if what the Hokage had told him about her mother was anything to go by, she would be a pain in the ear. Uruka nodded. Hinata Hyuga. P. Present, stuttered Hinata. Uruka smiled lightly. Kiba Inuzuka. Here, called Kiba. Both Kiba and Naruto exchanged glances and nods of respect as friends. Following the list, Uruka called the next name, Shikamaru Nara. Here, came a lazy voice. Naruto just shook his head and glanced at the lazy genius. His attire was rather plain, consisting of a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, adorned on both the sleeves and the back with a circle with a line through it. Naruto had seen him around also, mostly cloud watching or beating older shinobi at shogi. You'd think they'd know never to challenge a member of Konoha's smartest clans to a strategy game. It was because of its strategic value that Naruto had had his clones read every guide and book of the game they could find and learn the game back to front. He was going to be asking Yugao sensei and Hayate sensei if he could add it to his training schedule for strategy and planning purposes, and assign 50 or so clones to it. The Nara clan were hailed as the smartest clan in Konoha for many reasons, one being their in-depth knowledge of the forests, grasslands and wildlife, mainly the Nara deer or Raikumaru, which inhabit the Nara forest. The second being for their mastery of the yin release or intel, more specifically their shadow jutsu, allowing them to manipulate their own shadows as a method of attack or restraint. It was as even rumored that even a Nara child as young as 6 has an IQ of 180, which would be great if all the males weren't all dead lazy, and had to be nagged by their wives or mothers to do anything for longer than 60 seconds that doesn't involve sleeping or watching the clouds. Everything else they find too troublesome,